For 6 years in a row, Fortune magazine named Enron America's most innovative company. Business schools were eagerly teaching its methods to future executives, and Wall Street analysts absolutely worshipped it, pushing its stock well past $90 a share.
But that really begs the ultimate question, doesn't it? How on earth does a company of this magnitude, literally the 7th largest corporation in the entire United States, just completely evaporate almost overnight? To wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this deception, we've got to look at the whole picture. The illusion of innovation, the massive accounting machine they built, the toxic culture of greed, the rapid unraveling of it all, and finally, the devastating cost of corruption. Okay, let's dive right into this.
It all actually started pretty humbly back in 1985. Long before the complex derivatives, Enron was just a boring regional natural gas pipeline company. But its chairman, Kenneth Lay, had this massive vision to deregulate and completely transform the energy industry. And you know what? For a while, the entire world totally bought it. Enron reached a staggering peak valuation of $100 billion. Their Houston headquarters practically became a temple of American capitalism.
But here is the terrifying reality. Behind that gleaming glass facade, almost every single dollar was a lie. The entire fortune of this corporate titan was completely fabricated.
So how do you pull off a mirage that big? Well, Lay brought in McKinsey consultant Jeffrey Skilling, who proposed a radical pivot. They went from moving physical gas to trading energy using paper contracts. Skilling also introduced something called mark-to-market accounting. Basically, this let Enron log future projected profits on the current day's ledger. Just by trading gas like a speculative commodity, this shift rocketed their revenue past $100 billion. But here's the catch. When you build an empire entirely on paper trades, you inevitably rack up paper losses. To handle that, Enron built an incredibly elaborate accounting machine. Enter Chief Financial Officer Andrew Fastow. This guy engineered a breathtaking financial shell game using what are called special purpose entities, or SPEs. He set up thousands of these shell companies with one sole purpose: to hide billions of dollars in bad debt and failing investments from Enron's official books. If a deal lost money, they simply shifted the loss into one of Fastow's shell companies. So on paper, Enron looked wildly profitable. In reality, they were hemorrhaging cash. And Fastow, he personally pocketed over $45 million just for managing this web of deception. Now you might be wondering, where were the auditors? Arthur Andersen was one of the largest accounting firms on earth, yet they signed off on every single fraudulent statement. Why? Well, they were making $25 million a year auditing Enron and another $27 million consulting for them. That is a massive financial incentive to look the other way.
But accounting tricks alone can't hide a fraud of this magnitude. You need a highly toxic internal psychology to keep people quiet.
Inside Enron, the brutal reality was a performance review system internally known as Rank and Yank. Every 6 months, they would rigorously review employee performance, force everyone into extreme, cutthroat competition, and then automatically fire at the bottom 15%. This created a profound culture of fear. The constant threat of being fired meant absolutely nobody dared to question the numbers or report failing deals. You simply found creative ways to make it look good.
And the hypocrisy at the top was just staggering. While forcing this intense pressure on their employees, the executives were secretly cashing out, selling hundreds of millions of dollars in personal stock. Meanwhile, they publicly claimed the company was incredibly strong. When Wall Street analysts finally started getting a little skeptical, Jeffrey Skilling actually verbally abused one of them, dropping an obscenity right on a public earnings call just for asking for a simple balance sheet.
But a house of cards that huge is incredibly unstable. And the beginning of the end sparked from a really simple question by Fortune journalist Bethany McLean. She simply asked, "How exactly does Enron make its money?" And nobody could give her a straight answer.
Watch how fast this unravels. The speed is devastating. In August 2001, Jeffrey Skilling suddenly resigns. By October, the SEC is investigating $586 million in overstated profits. By November, $1.2 billion vanishes into those shell companies. The stock plummeted from $90 to under a single dollar, and by December, Enron filed for bankruptcy.
And that brings us to the catastrophic human fallout of that December bankruptcy.
Right up to the end, executives kept repeating this blatant lie: the company has never been stronger. They made these false promises specifically to keep their own workforce invested and quiet, which is just an unforgivable emotional betrayal. Contrast those executives who cashed out
with the 20,000 dedicated employees who suddenly lost their jobs. Even worse, these employees had been actively encouraged to invest their 401k life savings in Enron stock. Decades of hard work literally evaporated overnight.
The fallout for the architects of this mess was massive. Kenneth Lay was convicted on 10 counts of fraud. Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison. Andrew Fastow got 6 years. And Arthur Andersen, an 89-year-old accounting firm employing 85,000 people, was convicted of obstruction for shredding documents and was completely destroyed. This total systemic failure actually led directly to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. It was the most sweeping corporate reform legislation passed since the Great Depression, fundamentally rewriting the rules for how public companies are governed and audited in America. Ultimately, Enron wasn't brought down by a changing market, but by an empire built entirely on lies, leaving us all to wonder, what modern corporate giants are hiding a house of cards of their own today?